Yo, I got a whole piano. I don't know how to play it, bro. Also, new do rag because, as always, also, peep the fit, peep the. You know what I mean? Don't I look? Don't I look studious? Don't I look studious? Wait, hold up. Yeah, don't I look studious, bro? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Listen, I don't read that many books, if I'm being honest. But the books that I do read are always very interesting. So here are a few books that I've read that have actually made a difference in my life. I won't be doing any spoilers. I will be giving you a little breakdown of the books. And maybe if you guys have any suggestions for me for books or things of that nature, let me know. I'm also going to do one about manga, but we're going to do that another day. You know what I mean? I think we gonna just make this like first episode of book talk. You know what I mean? So let's just dive into it. A book that I've read multiple times throughout my life is this book on Think and Grow Rich. I believe this was made by Napoleon Hill. This is a book that is highly studied and I don't know. It's a very popular book. This one I have the complete classic text. There are a bunch of different versions of this book because this is a very old book, and it's more or less a book about having the will to succeed. In the sense of, there's a lot of people who say that they want to be successful and they want to do certain things in their life, but they don't actually put in the work to do it. And this book kind of sort of holds your hand, tells you a bunch of stories about different famous people and different people who have gained a lot of riches, whether that be with money or with just knowledge, and the way that they got to the point of being successful. There was this one story inside the book that's really interesting. A stockbroker that was he had like a limited amount of money, followed the teachings of I'm hoping I'm saying the name right. I had to look it up for a second because I was forgetting the name. But Warren Buffett, he completely ripped off every stock that he did, put in thousands of monies in whatever stock that this millionaire put in, and ended up being very successful. His one goal was to be as rich or close to the wealth as Warren Buffett, and he was able to make a great amount of money. He became a millionaire at the age of, I want to say 30 or even younger than that, probably 25. And it's just a really interesting book. It gives you a few pointers on how to successfully put your mindset into being successful. You know what I mean? And I know I'm probably saying it wrong, or maybe I didn't get the right teachings from the book. But I'm telling you, if you're really interested in following dreams or whatever you want to call it, then this book I highly recommend. Think and Grow Rich. I've read it multiple times. A lot of people's lives have changed from this book. Apparently, mine hasn't really. You know what I mean? I'm still broke, but maybe I'm not willing to as much as everybody else. That's just me though. Imagine this: you're a young black man in the year of 1967. You're very smart. You're on the way to becoming a Ivy. You're on the way to go into an Ivy League school. You're very in tune with a lot of the black people inside your area. You're also in tune with a lot of the white people inside your area. But you happen to be a very pretty individual. And with these looks comes a lot of opportunities that is not given or afforded to from people who look worse than you. And mix that in with the interesting teachings of a very questionable man that happened to be a pimp. And this is the story about Iceberg Slim. This book is called Pimp: The Story of My Life. Now, this book I highly recommend Kinda Sorta to anybody who's really interested in those type of things. It is basically an autobiography about a young man turning into a pimp due to certain situations. He used to sell narcotics, and then he ended up getting caught from that. He realized that he was a very attractive individual. He got a lot of hookers, whatever. And it talks about, again, I don't want to glorify anything that this guy does because he's actually a scumbag. He knows it. He made the book purely off of entertainment or just out of curiosity. I'm not necessarily sure. It is a very disgusting book. A lot of the tactics that he talks about that he used and the hands that he would put on these women is deplorable, is horrible. But on the other side, this is also a really good book about the business world. Oddly enough, a lot of the tactics that pimps during that time would use is still tactics that a lot of business majors, a lot of business people use to get over on a deal or get over on certain things. And I've used some of these tactics when it comes to interacting with certain people, the certain ways that using the certain ways that he would gaslight and or manipulate situations is very interesting because I've seen these techniques and these mannerisms and these conversations being used when talking to certain women or certain people when it comes to like a lot of situations. It's very interesting. And if I'm being honest, if you like crime, if you like freaking random autobiographies about people who are interesting, you would really like it. I know for me, it didn't necessarily change my life, but it was very, very interesting to see that side of the world. You know what I mean? Like, this is kind of like a place that I've never known or never known about. And I thought it's always interesting to read interesting stories. Now, this guy is a reformed pimp, as far as I know. I don't know if he's passed or not, but I know that he has become a better person. He became an author. He still remains to try to keep his name private, but his actual name, because people do research, they found it. His actual name is Robert Beck. So screw that guy. Also, really good book. You're a good writer. It's insane. I don't even know how to explain it. Santiago, a shepherd in a far off land, was farming one day, or doing his shepherd thing, when he happened to stumble across a myth, a legend about a treasure in a distant land. This is a story about this young man starting his adventure and throughout the years getting older and older, getting closer and closer to find that treasure. Now, that treasure isn't necessarily said to be a thing and is never necessarily stated or been explained to be an actual thing or even a place or even obtainable. But through his will, he tries to find that treasure. Whatever that treasure may lead, no one will ever know. This book is called The Alchemist. I highly recommend it. It's a really good book. There is a lot of interesting ways of thinking. There's a lot of interesting like symbolisms and the characters that you will meet during the journey and all that is just it's really fun. I really liked it. Of course, I know this is a very popular book, but this was a book that I was shown to by one of my exes. She put me on. That shit was good. I read it once and then I listened to through the audiobook 3 or 4 times because again, most of these books are on YouTube. It's audiobooks. You can just listen to it. If I'm being honest, I've listened to it. I've read them. Um, some of these books I don't necessarily have the physical copy of anymore because I've read these books throughout the many years. Well, I'm not that old. I'm kind of old, but I've read these books throughout the years, and honestly, this one I can't stress enough how interesting, how much this book like really helped me out with a lot of things that I was going through during my adolescent years, and you know, just check it out. You won't miss out. And the final book that I want to talk about is another autobiography. I know autobiographies. I don't know why I really like autobiographies and freaking self help books and stuff like that. I like them. Sometimes I read other stuff, which again, when I make a part two of this, I'll show y'all a few more. But one of the books that really stood out to me, especially during my middle school and high school years, was the autobiography of Malcolm X. Now, the autobiography of Malcolm X, if I'm being honest, probably one of the most influential books that I've read throughout my life. I remember my teacher, shout out Mr. P if you're watching this, shout out. Mr. P specifically gave me that book. He told me to read it, he told me to study it, he told me to understand it, and I didn't understand what that meant when I was younger. When I was reading it, I was just reading it because I knew that I needed the credits and it was something that I needed to read for school. But as I continue to grow up, as I continue to think about and process a lot of the words that was said on the book and a lot of the things that Malcolm X stood for, I understood why it was so important and why I highly recommend any person of color to at least check the book out, read it, understand it. Essentially, it goes through the life of Malcolm X, why he changed his name, his time in the the Muslim group, and his beginnings. His beginnings. He was also somewhat of a gangster. He had a very troubled life, and throughout the years after prison, he converted to Islam. He was very radical during the Civil Rights Acts. He believed that he believed in the eye for an eye. You know, if a black man or a person of color was beaten brutally or murdered, he felt like it was the duty of us, the people, to stand up to government and whoever and fight back. Now, of course, a lot of the times when a lot of history and historians they give a very radical side to him, which he did have a lot of radicalness when it comes to a lot of his takes during certain times and certain periods. But if I'm being honest, that was not the main thing. Main thing that he wanted was equality, just like how MLK was, just like how a lot of the very radical, very interesting, very influential men and women during that time had. So, other than that, I think that's where we're gonna stop off. You know, any of these books, have you read them? Have you checked them out? Are you gonna check them out? Let me know. If not, it is what it is. Mm, Probably next month or in a few weeks, I'll make another one about manga. Of course, manga way more fun. I like reading manga. I read Chainsaw Man on a weekly basis, so I always recommend it. Also, hit me with a like, hit me with a sub, and I'll see y'all when I see y'all.